CTV News at 5 with Hudson Mack.
All around the world, across Canada and on Vancouver Island today, people gathered to mark May Day, May 1st, International Workers' Day. Joining the global rallying cry for workers' rights was the Occupy Victoria movement. It's back. Members from various unions and the People's Assembly of Victoria gathered in Centennial Square. They set up an information camp in the square today in solidarity with various similar movements taking place around the world.
A day of imagining is a day to be able to create and imagine the change we want to see and the future we want to see in a way that's really positive and energetic and makes people feel like it is in their control and they do have something they can do about it.
In BC, May Day is not typically a day that gets a lot of attention from organized unions, but the Victoria Labour Council says the work that the Occupy movement has done internationally to bring attention to wage inequality and workers' rights is important.
There is a need to mark the efforts of workers. Clearly, the issues that Occupy brings internationally resonate today in our political conversation, whether it's nationally or internationally or here in British Columbia. Politics, I think, is very much different, and we can credit the work of the Occupy movement for that.
The Labour Council says it supports the Occupy movement but does not want to see a repeat of the occupation that was in the square last fall. This afternoon, bylaw enforcement officers visited the information camp to warn the group it did not have a permit for the event. Victoria Police have been keeping an eye on the site, but it is still in place in Centennial Square tonight. Well, the month of May is already here, and that means that April is behind us already. And, of course, April is Daffodil Month for cancer awareness. And it came to an end in a touching and beautiful way as a brother showed his sister just how much he loves her. This is the scene in the yard of Teresa Condon McKenzie, who is just home recovering from recent cancer surgery. Her brother Steve wanted to brighten her day, so before the sun came up on Sunday morning, he and some friends and supporters got together. They gathered and gardened. They planted 1,000 blooming daffodils, the Cancer Society's flower of hope.
Absolutely one of those things you can't put to words. The love and support, to see the effort that they put into it, it fills your heart with joy. It just gives you the strength to keep going and do what you need to do to get through the journey.
When they were children, Steve and Teresa grew up on Parker Avenue in Cordova Bay in Saanich, right behind Maddox Farm, and their yard backed onto the fields of daffodils that farmer Jeff Vantright planted there every year. And when she was a little girl, Teresa loved waking up to the fields of yellow and the daffodils were in bloom. And her brother Steve remembered launching Operation Daffodil to help his sister right now when she needed the boost of a brother's love, and what a difference it made. We thank Steve's cousin Heather Vantright for sharing their story with us tonight. Well, many of the tourists who come to Vancouver Island come here to catch fish. And one of the biggest anticipated sockeye salmon runs in decades kick-started today in Port Alberni. Sockeye salmon are in the midst of a revival in the Alberni Valley and Inlet, and some forecast roughly 700,000 salmon will pass through the Somas River this year. Today was the first day that sport fishermen could hit the waters and reel in as many as 4 salmon in the river. It's the highest starting limit for sport fishermen in the area since the early 1990s.
The biggest reason is ocean survival. We've had these cold currents, La Nina, that's given us our cold springs, and that's really good for ocean survival. So ocean survival rate's been great. In 97 and 98, there was no fishing on it at all, and that gave us the kickback, the rebound to build our runs back up to this size.
A new agreement on catch limits between commercial, sport, and First Nations fishermen in the Alberni Valley is being discussed, and there could be a deal on that ratified in the next few weeks. Well, not far away and also on the water, it's the dawn of a new era between CFB Esquimalt and the West Shore. Today, the new baseline user pay boat service shoved off.
1, 2, 3.
After they cut the ribbon, the passengers boarded the inaugural sailing of the Victoria Ferry's new baseline service, and it's off to a good start. Victoria Harbour Ferry transported more than 200 passengers this morning alone. The Harbour Ferry replaces the so-called Blue Boat that was offering the service until the end of last month. That's when Victoria Harbour Ferry and the Department of Defence came together to come up with a solution to keep the hundreds of Blue Boat commuters on the water and off the road in the Colwood Crawl.
The straightest line between 2 points when you live on an island is the water. There are 400 fewer cars on the road today because we are here, and we're very proud of that fact.
Even though we had to stop the previous service because of operational requirements, I still understood that for a lot of folks this was going to mean a longer commute for them. So for me, it was just fantastic that we were able to come up with this private user pay system.
One boat went into service today, a second is expected in another week or so, and a third sometime in July. Each of the baseline boats can carry about 40 passengers and takes about 20 minutes to make the crossing. The service will set you back $250 per sailing. Weekly passes are $22.50. A monthly pass is $80. Well, the University of Victoria is taking its proposed plans for a new parkade on the road, and this time it is going underground, at least partially. UVic held its second of 4 open houses last night to show off the latest drawings in the proposal. Originally, there were 5 design concepts. The new one is a combination of 2 of them. It includes 1 level underground, which would make the new parkade height about half the size of the first design that went to Saanich Council last year.
It's a very good step in the right direction. I like how they're listening to the community.
I think the most important thing that's happened is that the university has consulted.
Our initial consultation has really helped frame the revised design, and we're hoping again for the same type of feedback so we can go to Saanich with a final design in June.
Saanich Council denied UVic's plans twice previously. If you'd like to see this latest plan and offer your feedback, you can do it online at uvic.ca/CARSA. There'll be another open house tonight at UVic's Student Union Building. An amazing find to show you tonight from the coast of Haida Gwaii. More debris that has washed ashore from the Japanese tsunami. But what is even more remarkable is what happened after it was discovered. This Harley Davidson motorcycle was found on a remote beach by a beachcomber. Almost hard to believe, but the markings on the license plate led the Consul General in Vancouver to find the bike's owner in the Miyagi Prefecture, which was one of the hardest hit areas in the tsunami last year.
I would like to thank the man who found my bike in person, but because it's hard to do that, I would like to thank him here and now.
Well, that's very amazing because, in the end, the motorbike is very, very heavy,
Heavy indeed, but the shipping container that the bike was in was lined with styrofoam, and that's likely why it didn't sink. The Harley owner says he never thought he'd see his motorcycle again, and he hopes he can fix it up so he can ride it. Japan says it is heartwarming that Canadians have gone to the effort to return the bike. New charges have now been laid against the man who's accused of driving the tanker truck that crashed outside Goldstream Park, spilling 42,000 litres of fuel into the Goldstream River. Lawyers for 34-year-old James Allen Smith say Environment Management Act and Fisheries Act charges have now been laid. Those counts have been added to the separate charges of impaired driving and dangerous driving. Smith was a driver for Columbia Fuels last year. When the rig he was driving, the tanker truck flipped, dumping its load into the salmon-bearing river. Smith will face those charges in the West Shore Courthouse on June 7th. RCMP in Nanaimo have arrested a man wanted in Edmonton for sexual assault. Police in Alberta learned that 39-year-old John Lucan was living and working in Ladysmith, so they got in touch with their Vancouver Island counterparts. Mounties arrested Lucan yesterday outside his workplace without incident. He will likely be sent back to Alberta, where he will face charges. You might say there was a bit of a buzz on at the BC legislature today. Premier Christy Clark has virtually admitted that she smoked pot during her high school days, but she says that does not mean she's about to lobby the federal government to loosen Canada's marijuana laws.
Just if you had ever partaken of the weed yourself.
I graduated from Burnaby South Senior Secondary in 1983, and there was a lot of that going on when I was in high school, and I didn't avoid it altogether.
That's a yes then.
But Clark says pot and pot laws aren't her priority. Creating jobs and helping families is what she wants to do. She says changing the pot laws are up to Ottawa, or is up to Ottawa. Opposition NDP leader Adrian Dix has already said that he smoked some pot in his youth, but like Clark says, he was not a pothead.